Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Discussing a Murderer. This is Jeff Jones, and with me is a full panel today. Haven't had a full panel in a few weeks. So let's go from the top and introduce everybody, starting with Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Doing very well. Hello to my fellow panel members and the live chat. Doing good and continuing to get unpacked and preparing for, they're saying snow's coming this way, so we'll see.
We hope you get a white Christmas there, Jack. And
it's possible.
Big Jeff, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to everybody out in the chat, and Happy Holidays if Christmas isn't your thing. I have in the background all my Christmas decorations at the rate that I take them down. You may be seeing them for well into the new year based on the recording schedule. It's still before Christmas when we're recording this, but I think we'll probably see this one maybe the week after New Year's, right? The way that things go. But it's good to see everybody. It's good to be back, making good progress from my knee surgery. I'm looking forward to the full panel and getting deep into this one. So let's have at it.
Let's have at it, Big Jeff. That's right. Kel, what do you think? Let's have at it?
Let's have at it. Let's just get going. Welcome, everyone, and hello, panel.
Thank you for those quick comments, so we get right to it. And Dr. Silkman, welcome back again.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and welcome everyone on the panel and everyone in chat. Big Christmas to everyone and Happy New Year. Yeah, let's get into it. Great to be here.
Bye. See you. Yeah.
I'm Steven's cousin, Kim.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just let the science tell us. No need to be speculating.
Kathleen, can I just give you this? Here, I got it. I'm Brad Davis. I'm
Oh.
Dateline NBC. And
Okay.
I've been speaking with Andrew Canning before,
Sure.
and I just
Okay.
wanted to introduce myself.
Yeah. Okay. You got the
Okay,
motion.
thank
Thanks.
There's a test. Now why not? That test will tell the truth. When you're innocent, you want everything done. You ain't scared of nothing.
Hello, dear. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Okay.
There's nothing on the news today, huh?
Sure was.
Yeah, they're appealing it.
I didn't see it on the news. Must have missed it then. What channel is that?
Channel 2, Channel 11.
Brendan Dassey will not be leaving prison anytime soon.
Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimmel filing an appeal in federal court challenging a judge's ruling which overturned Dassey's conviction and prison sentence.
Attorney General Brad Schimmel says he believes the federal court decision to overturn Dassey's conviction is wrong.
Attorney General Brad Schimmel called the decision to overturn the conviction, quote, wrong on the facts and wrong on the law, citing two previous state court rulings that upheld Dassey's confession. The decision is now in the hands of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago.
Schimmel says the Habach family supports the appeal.
Now, don't you think that's rather amazing? And I'd love to hear what the rest of the panel members are going to say. Wrong on the facts and wrong on the law. This is Judge Duffin we're talking about here. Someone in the legal profession, someone who's been around the block a couple of times, and the Attorney General is saying wrong on the facts and wrong on the law. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's just wrong. He's flat out wrong. It's a politician's thing to say. It's riddled with errors, and his notion itself is factually incorrect. Because I don't even, believe that he really necessarily even understood what Judge Duffin's ruling was with regard to the habeas corpus petition, and the confession being illicitly obtained. So But I did. There was no correct mention of how of which facts he was talking about or how they were incorrect. So I found his statement, the statement of a politician, and when I hear the statement of a politician, I immediately dismiss it.
Yeah, Big Jeff, notice how he drugged the hall box into it. Wrong on the, he made that statement, drugs the hall box into it, but he doesn't say anything specific. It's completely a politician's statement without any substance whatsoever, and to drag the family into it. I think that I think it's an abomination what they did between Josh Call and the people in the AG's office and the Seventh Circuit, because they absolutely cherry picked, and to me what they did was they didn't follow the law either, because looking at the totality and taking things out of context, I have a real problem with all of it.
Yeah, 100% correct, Jack 61. And it's very interesting. You made a very important point. It is the Attorney General that dragged in the Halbach family again. And they're always trying to bring in the emotive aspect all the time. Instead of looking at the cold, hard facts, right? They're always dragging in the Halbach family name to get the emotions going, to stir up society again, to get that outrage going again. And it's amazing that the Attorney General was not prepared to accept the umpire's decision, right? He wanted to challenge it because he felt it was the right thing to do.
One more thing to add, and I've always had a problem with it, and I don't care which way it went. But once the three judges made their decision on the Seventh Circuit, that should have been it, done. This allowing the state to have a second chance at the apple with the en banc, and I don't care if it was the defendant of the state. Once the decision's made, that should be all. But no, they have this option of doing an en banc, and I don't really understand that, because it's like it's like having 4 or 5 search warrants to go, or however many to go into the Stevens trailer, right? You just keep going back till you find what you want. It's completely, to me, it's complete dereliction of one of our civil rights. That's me, though.
I think you're 100% right, Jack. It really does seem like almost a challenge to double jeopardy, right? I mean, why should the same court get to review it? I mean, it's really in these days, at least in federal court, you have political appointees. I'm not sure how much better that is than than elected judicial appointees. But that's just an opportunity for a suite of political appointees to overturn an accidental minority of appointees that may have a different viewpoint. And that doesn't seem to be the way that things ought to work. I mean, the dice are rolled with the 3-judge panel. So why not? I mean, is there a similar process in the United States Supreme Court? No, I guess they all hear it in the Supreme Court, right? You get one judge. Okay, so
that's right.
It doesn't even apply in the Supreme Court either. Why should you get this special attention? Yeah, I 100% agree. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, it allows.
Go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say, it allows us out, for them to say, well, we don't really like your decision, so let's get our gang in here and see what they have to say about it and see if we can beat you down. It's bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's important to reiterate what Judge Duffin's ruling, what he's actually saying in his ruling. And I'm going to paraphrase it, and if you guys can correct me on my paraphrasing, I'd appreciate it. It's something along the lines of that this decision on the admission of his confession was so wrongfully decided that any reasonable set of jurors / officials hearing it should have immediately concluded that decision to enter that confession was wrongfully decided. That's how bad this decision was. So I think that's important. I mean, Jack, if you can correct that wording, I'd sure appreciate it.
I think that's I mean, paraphrasing, I think you pretty well nailed it. There's no need to correct. You pretty well nailed up what he said. And
so when we say the guilters saying, here the guilters saying, no reasonable person would believe, or this and that. Here's a judge on the United States Court of Appeals that said that's saying, and it followed up by another ruling by 3 judges that are going to say the exact same thing, that this was a very, very wrong-headed decision. So this is by no means a slam dunk in either direction, and it just goes to show that there are reasonable people who don't have any type of stake in this game, who think that what was done to Brendan was complete bullshit, and like the people on this panel. So with that, I'll allow us to continue.
Yeah, I'm not going to go on because we've pounded on this a lot, but I think that, again, I don't care which direction that it went. You get to the Seventh Circuit to that level, and these political appointees, and I understand, there's always that risk of, shit going on in the background. But at the same time, these people are supposed to be a little slightly above the fray of the elected official. They're well versed in the law, and they see a variety of cases. So, when they get a case like this with Brendan, and they watched it from beginning to end, these interrogations, and read the various documentation of what happened. I can't remember which judge it was, and she basically said she was creeped out by, how Uyghur and Fassbender, approached Brendan and the way they talked to him and the way they messed with him. They tricked this kid. I think they clearly saw right through it. And if they'd have come back and said, "Hey, we think that what they did, a little trickery here, a little trickery there," the decision's done, and the defense doesn't get to say, "Hey, wait, well, we want an en banc." No, these judges made if a 3 panel is not enough to make a standing decision, then it needs to be an en banc all the time. Just like the Supreme Court, they hear all the judges that are in that circuit, they hear the case, and the decision's made. If that's not good enough with the 3 judges, it should be done away with. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, it's a real pity in a way that one of the options is that you can appeal the judge's decision, right? And unfortunately, if there wasn't that option available, it would have been so much better for Brendan, because then the only 2 options available was to release him or retry him without the confession. But if you have that third option of, oh yeah, you can appeal the judge's decision, then instead of coming to a conclusion, you keep on going. You keep on appealing until you get the decision that you want, right? And then you have to ask the question, well, what's the point of even taking it to Judge Duffin in the first place if you disagree with his decision? Do you know what I mean? And as Jack 61 pointed out, that should have been it. He took 10 months to look at that. 10 months. And this is a senior person who considered everything. And if the judge is saying, hey, you got this as a false confession, it's rubbish, toss it out, the option should have been release him or retry the case, but without the confession.
That's right.
And if you don't have a confession, you don't have a case.
They don't got nothing on me. They should just freaking let me go.
The state knows that you're innocent. They're just fucking you, that's all. They're probably gonna just try holding you until as long as they can. I'll call Laura later and find out what's what.
There's just been too much shit going on, Brennan.
Yeah, the news media and all that. I had to get out of the house.
Yeah, you going up Mars?
We're sitting here right now.
We're sitting here. I didn't even take a shower. I grabbed my shit and out the door we went.
Yeah.
You hang in there, okay?
I will.
Yeah, it'll get better.
I was hoping it would come true. That I'd wake up and he'd be right there. You know, like a surprise.
They get your hopes up and then they slap you in the face again. She's almost as bad as the first time.
We're asking Judge Duffin to grant Brendan bond, to give him his freedom during the state's appeal. The court will be looking at a number of factors. Whether the state is likely to succeed in its appeal. Whether Brendan will be harmed if he's kept in prison during the appeal. Whether Brendan is a danger to society. Whether he's a flight risk. Whether he's somebody that the court needs to worry about or not.
Laura Nyrider, Brendan's attorney, came to me about writing a release plan in Brendan's case in connection with a motion for bond that she was filing. My role is to help Brendan and his family address the challenges that Brendan may face when he is released. And I think it is also a way to help the court feel comfortable knowing where he is going to be sleeping, living, who he's going to be with, the types of programming he's going to be involved in.
You might have to get a job at first, though, right?
We'll see. You know, you're going to have to go like to therapy and stuff.
Again, we're watching this in hindsight. Now we know the outcome. Are we all, where are our heads at in terms of, are we kind of relieved Brendan didn't get granted the bond to get out? Because could you imagine getting out, getting to be at home, enjoying that moment, and then have the police maybe rock back up at your door going, get back in the car, you have to go home? Do you think that would have been a harder blow than just not getting out and just continuing the routine and the structure you were already in? Because this was a real thing. This could have potentially happened. He could have actually got out in bond, but then essentially the outcome would have been he would have ended up having to return anyway because they denied Duffin's ruling. So what is your guys' thoughts on that?
Kel, I kind of feel like I wish the kid had the time at home. I mean, he may never see home again. So even if he had just that, I mean, it would have been really hard to go back in after that. But at least if he had that, you know, that amount of time, that 10 months plus the time of the 3, but what's it add up to? Maybe a year, maybe 2. I think that would have been a good memory for him to have, even though it would have been awful to have to go back.
I think for me, psychologically, it would have been a great boost to the family and also for Brendan to taste some freedom. But this would have looked really bad for the state, right? Because then they would have been viewed as even more heartless and unsympathetic that, Brendan is now released at home. He's been a model prisoner, hasn't caused any trouble at all. And then to rip him out of the arms of his mother and put him back into prison would have been seen really as a real cruel and heartless act. And of course, if Brendan is given freedom, he has the ability to possibly conduct an interview, talk to the press, selected people, of course, to put out his story in society. But then again, the danger is that someone could have tried to take him out, right? A vigilante, someone who was not happy, could have potentially harmed Brendan. So it's a bit of 50-50, but psychologically, it would have been great for him and his family to see him out of prison.
I always wonder like how that would play to the the panel of judges if you know that this person in the case, their status is that they're out on bail at home with their mother for the last whatever, I don't know, what would you say there, Big Jeff, somewhere 13 months, I think you said. Does that play a factor when they make a decision? Is it one of those things that, had he been able to get released and then demonstrate that he's just been living at home waiting this appeal? I wonder if that has any sway, like, is it just another thing that he lost that maybe this would have gave him a little edge? I don't know.
No, that's actually a really good question, because that's why I posed this question to you guys, because ultimately that was everything you guys have said. It was what I was thinking as well. I think freedom, regardless how long it was, would have been beneficial for him, because if he got out and he got a job like he's talking about here, do I get a job right away? If he wasn't restricted, because again, if he did get out on bond, he would have had restrictions and conditions to his bond release. So maybe he wouldn't have maybe it would have been more of a house arrest or something. So his limitations would have been, there. So, but overall, if he had kept himself clean and he had done anything, gone to programs or done anything a little bit more than was required, but still in the boundaries of his restrictions, maybe it could have ended up swaying to him, because if they went back and went, hey, listen, since he's been out and he had the opportunity, he's done A, B, C, this has happened, he's gone to counseling, he's doing this, and maybe that could have absolutely changed the outcome. And that's why, again, I wanted to pose this question to you guys, because I really wanted to see, in hindsight, where does it mean for how many times does this poor boy get stiffed? He loses, it seems like he just keeps on losing all these possibilities that could have changed outcomes, and it's just so unfair. But it is what it is, and we're addressing it as we go along, and that's why I ask, because I think it's a genuine question to bring up.
Yeah, I think it would have been really difficult, but I also agree that it would have been better to have granted him bond, let him out, and so the world basically, or the state, could see how he would behave, how he would react in society. He's not a threat. He never was, except for their plans to convict Avery. He was a threat in that direction. So if his conviction becomes undone, then we have a whole host of problems for him, right, guys? So we've got IMFL and we've got the Hoodlight Squad right away. That becomes a real issue, because that was all fruits from these coerced confessions. So I did bring up, and I've got it shared, Jeff, the conclusion that Big Jeff was talking about. And I'm not going to read it all, but I'd like to read just a little bit of it if everybody don't mind. He says, although Kaczynski's misconduct was indefensible, the United States Supreme Court has never accepted arguments such as those Dassey makes here as a basis for relief under Sullivan. Therefore, federal law prohibits the court from granting Dassey habeas relief on the first claim he presented to this court. However, the state courts unreasonably found that the investigators never made Dassey any promises during the March 1, 2006 interrogation. The investigations repeatedly claimed to already know what happened on October 31 and assured Dassey that he had nothing to worry about. These repeated false promises, when considered in conjunction with all relevant factors, most especially Dassey's age, intellectual deficits, and the absence of a supported adult, rendered Dassey's confession involuntary under the 5th and 14th Amendments. The Wisconsin Supreme Court of Appeals decision to the contrary was an unreasonable application of clearly established federal law. So I think, Big Jeff, yeah, I think you correctly summarized, what they were talking about, or what he was talking about. I'm sorry.
You missed our mutual good friend Len Kaczynski in the last episode saying that Judge Duffin had a little dig for him.
Yeah.
If you call absolutely indefensible a little big, then yeah. I have a little bridge I'd like to sell you.
Oh my God, that guy's just a piece of crap.
Oh yeah, you'd be
Anyway.
smashing electronics.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to get stuff away from me, but I'm like Doc, I just start breaking shit and I think about that guy. And, the truth is O'Kelly was worse. And, so you got these two guys together, they're gasoline in a match, and they worked so very hard against Brendan in order to gain whatever they could against Avery. I don't know. I just can't think of a dirtier. This is the kind of stuff that gives defense lawyers such a terrible name. This guy gives bad defense lawyers a bad name. So anyway.
Yeah. I don't know, honey. It depends on how well you take to the outside. You're used to their system, how they run things there. I mean, out here, you can do what you want. You don't have to ask somebody to do it,
I gotta stay with you guys, after I get out, if I get on that appeals bond.
Well, you should ask her about it.
Most wrongfully convicted individuals have a distrust of the system or of people in general, and it takes time to be able to build that trust up again due to the injustices that they've had to suffer. And what is unique about Brendan is that he has trust. He's able to develop relationships with others, and he seems to be trusting of others very easily.
I had a dream that I was at the courthouse there. It's in Milwaukee, because that's where Magistrate Duffin is from. And Mike Halbach and his mom were in the elevator.
Really?
Yeah. And he said something. And then I said, deja vu. And he's like, what'd you say?
Huh.
Yeah, it's weird. That's like the first dream I remember for a while.
Isn't that interesting, guys, that he mentions Mike Halbach in a dream, and he's him saying deja vu. It just makes me wonder now. I mean, it almost sounds like for sure that he's seen some of these snippets where Mike Halbach is saying that he didn't watch anything that Brendan said. No, I didn't watch it, but convict him anyway. He's guilty. Interesting.
Well, we did have a dream in season 1 that Brendan, now I may not get the details exactly correct, but he had a dream that the Grim Reaper was in the court with him and then took off the robe, and it was Teresa, and it was all just a big joke. If you guys remember that.
I remember bits of that. I do.
I do remember bits of that. Yeah.
So this is the second time that, something is happening. And so I guess what we're seeing is the stress and the emotions are coming out in his dreams. Like whether he's saying it, in his conscious life, and he's also living it in his subconscious life.
If the Halbachs could meet Brendan and speak with him, I think they would think differently.
Have a change of heart.
Have a change of heart. When this all went down, I asked Mark Wiegert how many times if I could speak with Teresa's mom, Karen.
They wouldn't let her.
And they wouldn't let me. He's gotten pictures, books, banners from all over the place. And when he does come home, he's got a big 43-inch. Because somebody bought him a flat screen TV. Right there. This also somebody made him. Yeah, this will be his room after a while.
have a real problem with that. I know everybody else probably does too, but
And that's why I
this
stopped
has-
at Jack Let Loose iPad Smasher.
absolutely, it is infuriating because if the state had done their job correctly to begin with, we wouldn't be here. Understanding that, we always want closure, or we want to blame. I'll forget closure. I shouldn't have said that. We want something to somehow be able to explain why this event happened, no matter what it is. And to say that Brendan was part of why Teresa's not here now, those mistakes were made way back when. And the failure of the state to recognize that is their issue. And understand that, the Dassies or the Hallbachs would certainly be affected, but to be irreparably harmed, it's complete bullshit. It's another, what Big Joe said, it's a political statement. Sorry, it is.
Yep, I agree 100%. And this is a common theme that we see all the time. And that is, how could you possibly contemplate releasing Brendan and Stephen? It's going to cause this harm to the Hallbach family, etc., etc. But what you notice is that the Hallbach family are very, very quiet. They don't come out, they don't speak, they don't talk, they don't do an interview, they don't give their viewpoints. All of their bidding is done by the Attorney General and law enforcement. And it's remarkable that, guys, we've seen it. Mistakes have been made in the past in many other cases, right? Where people are finally released and exonerated. Now, think about it. That's going to affect families who they thought that individual or individuals were put away for life in prison because they had committed murder, rape, or something like that. And then when the system finally determines that they were in actual fact innocent, how do you think those families are going to react? And my point is this. If Stephen and Brendan are exonerated and somehow the killer or killers are finally caught, how is the Hallbach family going to react then to realize that all this ill feeling and finger pointing, etc., was to the wrong individuals? Because remember, Jack 61, what happened when Penny Bernstein was told that your attacker was not Stephen, it was Gregory Allen. It was devastating for Penny Bernstein, right, Jack 61?
Put her in a massive depression. That's exactly right.
100% correct. And so, what is the state trying to do here, guys? Shield the Hallbach family from the potential reality that both men could indeed be innocent, right? So, by hook or by crook, if it comes out that both Stephen and Brendan are exonerated, they had nothing to do with the murder of Teresa Hallbach, what is the impact then on the Hallbach family? Crazy.
What I like about this is that the judge it seems to have ruled here that Brendan's confession was wrongfully elicited, right? I mean, that means and people seem to be interpreting this as, well, this isn't any indication that he didn't commit this. It's just that he's getting off on some level of technicality, right? And to me, what this ruling says is, they extracted this information from somebody who was completely innocent in the first place. So it doesn't. I don't see how they get to pull the shenanigans of going to a judge and treating Brendan as if he is convicted, when it seems to me that he should be exonerated based on the fact that he was convicted on this evidence that was completely inappropriate. So I'm not a lawyer, and you get what you pay for, but by the standards of a reasonable person, it just seems to me that this declaration that the whole trial is FUBAR. You got to go back to this state where he's pre-trial and innocent till proven guilty. I guess I don't understand how come they get to go to a state level judge and get the state level judge to agree he's too dangerous to be let out. I mean, based on what? You know, they don't have a conviction anymore, right? So what legal basis do they get to base this on? So I don't know the answer to that. Maybe somebody like Tracy could give you the answer to that, and I'm sure you know, it's water under the bridge now. It's come and gone because but I guess it's just to me it's just wrong. Just wrong. Oh.
But Big Jeff, but here's the problem. It's the perception. That's what the problem is for people like Brad Schimmel. The perception is that if Brendan gets released, then there's hope. Then there's that possibility that he is indeed innocent. So you want to take away that hope, right, Big Jeff? That's what the problem is.
Yeah.
Brad Schimmel's
that's what they want. You know, and they've got the complicit media saying, "Oh, here's one of Wisconsin's most notorious rapists," right?
Yes, and killer. So,
and killer.
So that's correct. So if they release Brendan Dassey on bond, then there's the perception of saying, "Oh my God, did we get this wrong?" So therefore, you never get society to ask that question. You keep him in prison, right? You remove the hope.
Well, and also,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add to your all's conversation. If he gets released, even in a bond situation, then the questions can arise and say, well, shit, if they're letting him out, then maybe there's some real problem here with Stephen's case too, right? So that opens up kind of a crack in another door. I'm just saying, it goes right along with this thing you guys are talking about with hope, removing hope.
Yeah, my question is more along the lines of propriety, and you know, if basically they're overturning his conviction, he's in a state of not guiltiness. It seems to me. I guess I don't. You know, the state's options at this point are retry or appeal. You know, how do they get to keep him incarcerated, and on what basis do they get to say that he's dangerous?
I agree.
They don't have a conviction, right? So I guess it just seems that there's something to me. There's something fishy. I suppose you know, Laura Nyrider would have been all over it if there was something there. But you know, again, I can only fall back on the standards of a reasonable person, and to me, it just seems wrong. So that you know, we've done that a lot today, but we're not lawyers, and I guess you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I work at the same non-lawyer firm that you do, but trying to look at it as a reasonable person. And you're right, no conviction. There's absolutely no reason. They've got charges, so let him out on bond. To me, that's reasonable. Again, this goes right in conjunction with the state, the Seventh Circuit, making a decision, and the state says, "Hey, wait a minute, that's not good enough. We want all the judges on the Seventh Circuit to have a look at this." Well, okay, you know, no, they've already made a decision. It's done. You either retry him, let him out, retry him, or you just move on. He's done.
I agree everything you guys said, and just really quickly before we move on, but I look at it as the big picture, and it's everything you guys have said but more. I also think it kind of, their fight, we always say their fight is to protect their conviction, and I think it goes beyond that as protecting, in a sense, Mark and Wiggett and Fassbender, because if this all got undone, it's their entire credibility, their entire integrity and their work ethic, and all of that would come under scrutiny. That these two gentlemen, I don't even know if there's the word beyond failed this Brendan, or whether it was just, I don't even know the right terminology to say it, but it would bring into question everything. Because if these two gentlemen couldn't even get an interrogation right, what does it mean for everything in this case? And overall, I think that's what it always just comes down to. It's just protecting the entire conviction. And it came with, if you can shut down, the whole process. If you can shut down Brendan's, it doesn't flow into Stephen, and vice versa. And I know that we have people like Tracy and Travis have said before, and we even hear it now from Kathleen. Just because Stephen may get out doesn't automatically mean it'll affect Brendan. He still has to go through his own journey and vice versa. But it opens up a door where you have a little bit more wiggle room to where we are at now. And that ultimately is what they were fighting for, to keep it all locked down, to protect the process, to protect the conviction, and to make sure that nothing and nobody came under the scrutiny and the spotlight for this utter fuckery that they caused.
100% correct. And Jack61 will back me up on this. And this is why the Colburn versus Netflix saga is potentially very dangerous for the state, because it's now putting the spotlight firmly back on what happened to Stephen in 1985, because it's a continual going back to the process. Remember, Jack61, the phone call that Colburn got, that's now going to potentially put Kacerik and Vogel back on the map. That's exactly what they don't want.
Front and center. Front and center they would be.
And with the Brendan Dassey situation, as Kelly pointed out, correct. It is the protection of the verdicts, because if you undermine the confidence in the judicial system, then everything has to be addressed. You have to talk about the judge, the prosecuting attorneys, the juries, the evidence, the verdicts, the whole lot. And it will ultimately go all the way back to who? The Attorney General's office. And that's why Brad Schimmel understands the political ramifications, and that's why he wants to put a lid on it, which is exactly what Peg Lockenschlatter did in Stephen Avery's exoneration. The exact same thing. She whitewashed it. Now, Brad Schimmel knows that if you release Brendan Dassey, it's going to be an embarrassment to him. So he's now painting the picture. And remember, Jack61, guys, Ken Kratz wrote in his book, I'll never forget it, if they release Brendan Dassey, how do you know he's not going to go out and commit another murder? And then what? We're now going to have the press and another Making a Murderer episode or documentary based on releasing a Dassey, him killing somebody else, and the whole process starts all over again. That's what Kratz wrote in his own book, Jack61.
That's right. He did. He absolutely did. So he's making, some kind of fantastic, forecast for the future. And the guy, he screwed up his own life so badly. He absolutely destroyed his own career. And this stuff's coming out of this guy's mouth.
I mean, the state obviously has an interest in protecting the public. The public has an interest in being protected. However, the habeas statute relating to bail creates a presumption that if a habeas is granted, that the person should be released. So there's a presumption in favor of release. When the motion for release on bail was filed, part of that motion, for example, we included Brendan's prison records. And it showed that for the 16-year-old that went to prison and has been in prison for 10 years, he had 3 minor violations. One was for having an extra packet of ramen noodles. One was for having some scotch tape on a checkerboard. One was using a prison form to keep score of a card game they were playing. He was described as someone who was cooperative with staff. There have been 0 problems with this kid. I mean, the case law is clear in terms of impact on Brendan. Any day that someone spends in prison that he shouldn't be in prison, that person suffers irreparable harm.
Bloody hell, Lynn Hartman. Hey, Jax, based on that last segment, score 1 for the law offices of Jack and Jeff.
That's right. I agree.
If Kratz can have his sign Ken Kratz law offices, even though he doesn't have the law licenses, we can have one too, I'd say.
And probably get better legal advice.
That's right.
I love this drive over to the prison. I've never seen so much agriculture. It's beautiful. At first, I felt deeply compelled to contact him and try to offer some kind of support for him while he was in this situation. And after the first letter, he got back to me and asked if I would like to receive phone calls from him. To be honest with you, had I not been in the situation that I was in, I was going through a divorce, that he was offering support to me, and I needed that at that time. In any other circumstance, I would not have been looking for a pen pal in prison, of course. Especially since my ex-husband is a law enforcement officer of 30 years. So it was like the exact opposite of what my life was before.
Me.
I don't even know if I'll get in there without crying first. It's so hard to leave him there knowing they're going to take him back to this 5x5 cell or something he hasn't done. It's not right. And the person who committed this crime is still out there. He needs my help. He needs everybody's help. I wanted to be a part of it. I don't really know how to explain it. I knew in my soul it was going to be a part of my life. And I knew that if there was another season of the documentary, that I was going to be in it as Stephen's girlfriend.
The first moment that I saw her, I felt that my feelings with all of that was right. I gave her a hug, big kiss, big French kiss, and everything felt good. I see when I look in her eyes that she has a bad life just like me. It's been taken from her, and mine's been taken from me. I never felt like this I feel with her.
Stephen Avery, the star of the Netflix docuseries Making a Murderer, is engaged to be married. The 53-year-old has been exchanging letters and phone calls with Las Vegas legal secretary Lynn Hartman for 8 months. Their relationship has been kept secret because Hartman was threatened online by people claiming she was only marrying Avery for fame and money.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah?
What you doing?
My show is on lethal weapons.
Oh. So you're saying you're gonna cut it short tonight, huh?
Well, I told you I was going to call you, so
Yeah.
the call is more important.
You're right. So what else is new?
Today, someone told me that someone was selling my letters, and then look at one of them sold for like $200.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
Yeah. And you anybody asks, I could just say, that's not mine, it must be someone else. Just proves that that person was just in it for the money.
You have 1 minute left.
Holy Christ. That wasn't
15
50.
minutes already.
It wasn't. Can you call back?
I don't think he's going to be able to. I forgot to put money on the account.
You said you had $8 left, didn't you?
Yeah.
You
Oh, yeah.
Try-
I told you twice before.
try.
Well, I love you just in case.
All right. Yeah, I love you too.
I'll try to call you on Friday.
All right.
There's too many troublemakers in this shit.
Oh, there's troublemakers there?
Yeah, no, there's troublemakers out there.
Oh, out here?
Yeah. And they're sitting here and all the chaos comes because they got to get on that internet and talk. And if it ain't one person, it's another one. Lynn. Nobody likes her. Everybody wants to get in my life. This is my life. It ain't theirs.
Yeah. Barbara had everybody taken off of Brendan's visitor. And now he just sits there.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's better.
No, I don't know.
Well, I do know.
Oh, yeah?
The day I get out, I'm going to get my license, and I'm going through it. I ain't throwing this away.
I don't know.
Oh.
I sit home by myself.
Yeah.
With the dogs. Yeah. Everybody says, walk. Well, when you can't walk, how do you walk?
Yeah, you can't.
No.
Oh, it hurts.
How's your body? Does it hurt?
You got that right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you ain't 80 years old either.
There's people 100 years old.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
You have 1 minute left.
Yeah, so we got less than a minute, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't care what anybody says. Love is hard to come by.
Oh, yeah?
That's right.
Well, I'd give you mine.
Yeah.
My other half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for using.
Yeah, I love you too. Bye.
Goodbye.
The woman engaged to making a murderer, Stephen Avery.
There are a lot of people that want to help him that don't want to marry him.
Should she be afraid?
I can't do this anymore.
With a surprise phone call from prison.
He's on the line right now.
Oh my God.
I called her, and then they had me all set up with Dr. Phil. It was kind of I don't know, kind of like a setup again. It kind of hurt a lot. And after that, when I called her, she wasn't herself. I said it was too much of money, and she said it was none of my business. And so I got a hunch with her and her daughter set this up where they could get some money out of me and my feelings and my love. Brought me in and then threw me away. You know, and I never felt like that ever in my life.
She's trying on a wedding dress for a wedding that never was or will be. Lynn says the advice she got from Dr. Phil kept her from going through with the marriage. Lynn wrote her fiancé a Dear Steve letter. I cannot continue to be involved with you because there is so much negative for me. I can't do this anymore. She says he did not take it well.
I had to end the relationship because I saw signs in his personality that concerned me.
Lynn says she's now in fear for her life. Once she worked to help free Avery, now she hopes he never gets out of jail.
While I'm waiting for the response from the prosecution to my motion for scientific testing, I want to keep the rest of my investigation going. What we want to do is try to figure out who had the opportunity to get the bones back on the property. So Kurt, I think what you did an overview map.
Specifically on this map, we've highlighted where the pelvic bones were recovered.
Those are in relationship to the deer camp. The deer camp is off of Cuss Road, correct?
Yes.
So those appear to be what, south, west?
You found in the material from the quarry pile 2 fragments that appeared to you, in your experience, to be pelvic bone. Is that right?
That's correct.
You suspected them of being human pelvic bone. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes.
You still suspect them of being human pelvic bone?
Suspected possible human.
Right. I mean, you found some burned bone from all 3 sites. Quarry pile, Yonda burn barrel, Stephen Avery's garage area.
That's correct.
And of the burned bone that you found, the condition was roughly similar in all 3 sites.
That is correct.
That's all.
Dean Strang, he was so much of a nice guy. He really was. He was holding Dr. Eisenberg by the hand, going through her testimony gently. He should have been a hell of a lot more aggressive, just my viewpoint, because this was a crucial, absolute crucial finding. And that is, the state could not explain what the hell part of Teresa Halbach's pelvic bones were doing in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Now, let's think about it. Ken Kratz went to great lengths, right, Jack 61, right, team panel members. He went to great length to say that Teresa Halbach never left the Avery salvage yard nor her RAV4. And this is remarkable. This is remarkable, right, Jack 61, in which now cut, burnt, human cremains are now found in Yonda burn barrel number 2 and in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Yet, can you believe that the state's forensic anthropologist, who Ken Kratz said was the smartest woman he ever encountered, cannot make a definitive judgment on whether those bones are indeed human? She went so far to say they were suspect human bones, yet she had all the means to test those bone fragments to determine that they were indeed human, but she refused to do it. And here's the bizarre thing. Those pelvic bone fragments were the only articulated bone fragments found, which meant that 2 bone fragments were joined together, right? Now, any anthropologist worth their salt knows the difference between a human pelvis and a pelvis from an animal. But Dr. Eisenberg kept her mouth shut. And I am disgusted that someone with her scientific knowledge and integrity refused to classify them as human. Shocking.
Well, what did she have to do to make this declaration definitive? Is it anything more than look at them under the microscope?
Correct. So all Eisenberg had to do was look at the bone fragments under a microscope. And any forensic anthropologist probably has about 4 or 5 microscopes at their disposal. But to make matters worse, Big Jeff, she didn't actually have to look at the bone fragments under a microscope because they were sliced open. The bone fragments were sliced open. So she said in court, and we covered this, right, Jack 61? She said a human bone would have a thin outer layer, cortical layer, and a honeycomb structure on the inside. Well, guess what that bone fragment has? The exact anatomical features that Dr. Eisenberg said she would expect for a human bone. She refused to classify it as human, and I believe that was under the directions of Mr. Kratz.
You have to wonder why, because she's one of the top rated in the state. You have to wonder why she wouldn't have done the test. I mean, to me that's just automatic. You test to see what you have. Otherwise, you just got a bunch of bones. But then to definitively try to say, well, they're suspect human, but I'm not going to test them. Well, I mean, what is? I have to agree with you, Doc. She was directed not to classify.
Just despicable behavior. Typical despicable behavior.
But to make matters worse, guys, and I promise I won't harp too much on about it, but she also happened to be the forensic anthropologist in the Christine Rudy case, right, guys? And that was a horrific murder, which, when you look at the circumstances, almost mirrored what happened to Teresa Halbach. Now, what is interesting is that in that particular case, part of Christine Rudy's body was burnt as well, cremated as well, and part of her torso was thrown in the river. Well, Dr. Eisenberg actually thought that some of the bones present in the burn pile were in actual fact human fetal bones. They actually turned out to be animal bones. So she had made a huge blunder, because later on they found Christine Rudy's torso in the river, and inside the torso was the fetus, right? The fetus was within the torso. So Dr. Eisenberg, the smartest woman that Kratz had ever seen, had made a huge mistake. Now, wait for it. You know how they discovered that those bones were animal bones? They did a simple test. They used a microscope, but they did one extra test. They used antibodies. So what they did is they exposed the bone to animal and human antibodies. More animal antibodies bound to the bone than the human ones. They concluded that the bones were indeed from an animal. Guess what Dr. Eisenberg could have done to those pelvic bone fragments? The same freaking test. An immunological assay on the cremains to say, hey, more animal antibodies bind. This is a bone from a deer or an animal. More human antibodies bind. This is likely from a human pelvis. It is very likely from Teresa Halbach. Now, Jack 61 will back me up on this. What did the state do to those cremains, Jack 61?
They gave them away. Bonegate 2011.
They gave the cremains away, guys.
Are found. Does that look like a burn site, or do they seem to just be put there?
No one notes anything that there's no burn barrel nearby. They don't know that there's any ashes or anything on the ground.
How do you think that happened?
An open container, possibly
Maybe
in
you're
a vehicle
stumbling around in the dark,
or on foot.
Like if you were in a panic. And didn't they also confirm those bones had been cut? They could see cut marks on those.
There are cut marks on those. There's also cut marks on bones in the burn barrel.
So strange.
It is strange.
So Kurt, go through where the stations are when they block off the property.
They maintain a command post where Avery Road meets the east-west road that goes out to Barb and Steve's, as well as a squad car situated on the conveyor road and by where the RAV was recovered. And then of note, the guard situated in the northwest portion of the Avery property is actually east of Steven's trailer. So he was to the front of it, which means that it is possible to, be behind the trailer or behind the garage without being in a visual line of that officer. You could potentially be there undetected.
So really entering Stephen's property from Cuss Road across the field is not guarded.
That's right. There's really no police presence apart from the excavation site at the cul-de-sac on Cuss Road.
How long does the guard stay there on Cuss Road?
Oh, I don't know. Not for very long at all.
I mean, if you drove across, you could just drive across the field, which is what Stephen says Mr. Redant did 2 weeks before Teresa disappeared, that he drove a pickup truck across the field, parked behind Stephen's trailer, and just walked up and talked to him.
The important thing about that is that that showed beautifully the direct access from Cuss Road to Stephen Avery's property. It was very, very easy to do. And it also was a hotbed of activity for the dog tracks as well. The dogs were very active in that particular area across the cornfield. So it all starts to make sense that likely the cremains were dumped in the burn pit coming straight from Cuss Road, that area there.
This is where I want to start with him. I don't want to start just walking up and cross-examining. So we'll walk up, kind of be oriented, and then ask him to take us to where he was positioned when he saw the fire. So Eddie, what the role I need you to play is to just listen to what he's saying, almost like you're a juror. Would you believe this story that he's telling?
Do you think it's strange to meet at the deer camp?
Yeah, it was my idea. It's, I mean, because he's got to show us this stuff, so.
It could actually be where it happened.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's a lot more disarming to be on the property. He can't really, lie to our faces if we're there.
Yeah, and I'm working, I'd rather work off a theory and then have it disputed than not, just, not have any theory. So I believe the killer plants the car and the killer plants the bones. I do not believe the cops move the car onto the property. But if you're the killer and you're aware of when everyone's off the property, you move the car in on the 4th. So then you're in a situation where you think, I got to get more of her stuff over on Avery's property. I got to help the cops. Because I'm watching it unfold and I'm panicked because they got their dogs are coming to my property and I've got ambulances and cars all lined up on Cuss Road. So I am terrified. So what I do make another trip over, and I make the trip over with the bones. And then the cops are dumb enough, they immediately jump on the Avery bandwagon. It's a perfect thing. The Averys are gone by the 5th and the property's blocked off. And he's able to come and go.
I realize her theories have vacillated a little bit over the years. She just said she thinks the murderer put the car on the Avery salvage yard. I mean, to me, in order to do that, if you don't have access, for example, to large equipment like the Avery's had, and you want to get that car on the Avery property, you need a key, right? So to me, whoever had the key planted the car, and he shows up in Stephen's bedroom under very mysterious circumstances. I'm not saying it, that I know who did it, but to me, it's more believable that the people who had the key planted the car. That's all.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Big Jeff. But I'll tell you what, if I was Josh Redant, I'll be extremely worried because it looks like there was a lot of activity around his deer camp, around Cuss Road, and the mere fact of that Josh Redant had very easy access to Stephen Avery's trailer through the cornfield. Yeah, it really does put the spotlight on him. And to tell you the truth, I was actually quite surprised that Kathleen Zona let him off the hook so easily. Just an opinion, of course. I'm not saying Josh Redant did anything, but he was in a prime position because where his property was, it overlooked the salvage yard. He had incredible access to and from the salvage yard. And isn't it interesting, Jack 61, that Chuck phoned Josh Redont and said, "What's going on? What's going on here?"
Yep, it's damn funny.
which is rather remarkable stuff, guys.
You know where I'm at with what was just said about this road that leads to Cuss Road, and yes, Redont did use this path, but it's not an exclusive path only for Redont, and I think that that's kind of where my brain goes. That yeah, Redont used it. He showed us that it's a path there, but this is open for anybody. There's no gate there. There's no lock. You know, so it does, you know, leave that open to interpretation a little bit.
It does, but it also provides an ideal passage for someone who's going to do some planting, easy access in and out without being detected. Now, you know, when you argue with guilters, you know, oh yeah, come on, how is somebody going to do this and do that? Hey, all you need is one aerial view, and don't forget, on November the 4th, right, guys, they did an aerial flyover. They would have taken pictures. They knew the layout of the salvage yard. They knew the ways to get in, the ways to get out. So, you know, the idea is that on November the 4th, likely the RAV wasn't there when they did the flyover. To me, in my opinion, the RAV4 got placed there probably in the early hours of November the 5th. Right, got dumped there on the property, but there are definitely easy ways to get in and get out. That's important.
Well, that brings us to that time of the episode there, guys, where we're going to head it on over to Big Jeff. Big Jeff, we saw a little bit more of the Brendan saga unraveling. We got some insight to behind the scenes of Stephen's life a little bit, and started to talk about bones and other evidence. And I think next episode we'll be heading on over to Redonce to see what he has to say. So give us your wrap-up comments and head us on in.
Well, except for Lynn Hartman, it was a very good episode to watch. And I always enjoy the aspect of the show where we see Zellner not necessarily knowing, you know, she's pursuing the evidence. We're finding stuff out in the same real time that Zellner is finding stuff out, and to see her investigative instincts, especially with regard to Cuss Road. I mean, I just caught what she said about the quote unquote ambulances being lined up there. I mean, I had probably been on the case for a year or more before I, realized the depth of the antics that were going on at Cuss Road. That included the Manitowoc ambulance, right? Which was actually there. She's correct about that. So it's good. It's good. I mean, there's little tidbits everywhere that you miss and that you pick up every time. But this is actually the aspect of the show that I particularly, the MAM 2 particularly, that I very much enjoyed was to watch her sort of pursue the evidence in real time, in good faith. And when we go and we talk to Redont and we hear Redont say, oh yeah, they really pushed me into saying that fire in the burn barrel that I saw was actually bigger than it was. They wanted the towering inferno. It was just more evidence that they did what they needed to do to put Stephen Avery away. So that's the part of the show that I enjoy very much, going through the evidence. We're going to come to some cellular evidence pretty soon, which is also very interesting, and I'd like to talk about that too. Anyway, with that, hand it off to the rest of the panel. Always love to hear what they have to say, and on to the next.
Absolutely, Big Jeff. Thank you very much. Jack, why don't you give us your wrap-up comments next?
Well, this one was tough, and I think everybody here will agree. I certainly know that, we all have very strong feelings about Brendan and how he was treated, not only, going back in real time to, 2005 and then skip forward 4 or 5 months, and they really went after him with daggers. And they were going to make it work. It comes to mind. And then, as time progressed, obviously all of his appeals and everything failed. And then, we get into 2016, looks like Duffin's done his homework. He's really dissected this damn thing. He's going to get out. No, probably not. And the state gets a couple of bites at the apple to keep him locked up, because we're not going to worry about that, we screwed him over, but, somebody in the Halbach family might be offended. And I say that with no disrespect to the Halbachs. I really do. But there's more than just them involved. And to just completely say we're going to blame Brendan because it might offend someone if he gets out, even though the way that they put him in was completely wrong. To me, this was the really writing moment for me. And look, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this other stuff too, the bones and talking about Dr. Eisenberg and what she did. But this stuff about Brendan, to me, is such a screwing over of our constitutional rights as an American citizen. And it goes right back to, if you got money, you're probably going to get away with it. If you don't have money, the state owns your ass. And if they got a target on you, you're going to get locked up. Anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to this next coming up. Hopefully the next time, talking about the cellular stuff. I really like hearing Big Jeff talk about that. He knows his shit about it. So looking forward to that and a little bit more. So thanks, guys. Thanks to everybody in the live chat. On to the next.
Well, thank you, Jack. On to the next, of course, and on to Dr. Silkman.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and everybody in chat, and the rest of the fellow panel members. I really enjoyed this episode. It was the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm afraid. I really didn't like the Hartman stuff, Lynn Hartman stuff. It was just self-serving rubbish from her. I just can't believe that she didn't do all of this for her own 15 minutes of fame, getting on with Dr. Phil. It was just show pony stuff. It was just terrible. Fancy using Stephen for your own gain. Just awful. It was very heartbreaking hearing about Brendan and what the state did to him. Even though Judge Duffin did the right thing and found his whole confession was just pure rubbish and coerced, Brad Schimmel wasn't going to stand for that and kept on pursuing Brendan, and was really heartbreaking. For me personally, I really enjoyed the forensics. I really enjoyed discussing the forensics with the panel. I think that's really my strong point. It really tells us, to me, it tells us one thing, that the original forensic analysis in the case was done really badly. You could tell that. The mere fact of that Kathleen Zona with her experts is finding all this new material, I think, is a blight on just how shoddy the real investigation was done initially. And it goes to show, guys, and I think we all agree, they were out for Stephen. That was their number one objection. Get Stephen at all costs. Who gives a stuff about the forensics? Will make, as Jack61 said, will make it work. Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Dr. Silkman. Kel, why don't you lead us out of episode 17?
Yeah, I have to agree with Dr. Silkman on this. We watched the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I agree the best part for me is always talking about the forensic evidence. I think that is the case in a nutshell. It was DNA that got Stephen out in the 1985 case, and now it's the DNA that is got him in, and it's keeping him in to this day. So the whole point of reviewing the DNA in this case, who knew? For me, I always go back to who knew the significance of the power of everything that was found and the way it was found and how they used it against him. Did they just lock him down into it? And I think that's why I find it so interesting, because I do agree that this is a two-part crime. You have the murder of Teresa Halbach, and then you have the planning scenario. And we got a little bit of a first view of the state of how they're going to attack this. They're they've come forward and they've said basically, you know, there's no testing for framing. To do a framing defense, we want to see the who, what, how, when, and why. And it's just interesting to watch it unfold. And I just want to thank everyone again. And apologies if this is a little bit cracky. I've just gone onto my phone because I'm driving. I'm not addicted at all. I can walk away anytime.
That's very cute, Kel.
We believe you, Kelly. We believe you.
Sure you can. Yeah. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Well, thank you for those comments, Kelly. And I just want to say thank you to everybody out in the chat, everybody that's following the journey with us. You know, likes are the gasoline of YouTube, but I can't fill my tank without you. So please like, subscribe, and share on your social media if you can. For Kelly and Big Jeff, Dr. Silkman, and Jack, this is Jeff Jones saying this has been Discussing a Murderer.